Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and go into the first part of the evening, the presentation here, is what is a septic system and what do you need to know about it? Certainly, we aren't going to take 20 years of experience and condense it down in a few minutes. We're just going to have a quick crash overview that hopefully lays a little bit of foundation. Maybe some of you know that 80% of what I share. I don't know, but we're just going to do a quick overview what a septic system is. Naturally, you have your house, you got your streams of wastewater, gray water coming out from the house. In a typical town system, that would go straight to the public sewer down the street to the sewage treatment plant. But in a septic system, or another way to say it is on-site waste disposal system, you got it coming out, you have at least 2 or 3 minimal components. You got a tank. The purpose of that tank is to settle solids out and clarify, at least minimally, that waste before it goes to the absorption area. And whatever makes up that absorption area is basically a means of getting that clarified water, hopefully treated somehow or clarified a bit before it gets released into the environment. In a typical septic system, you're using the ground as a filter. And we'll talk about that more a little later. And so the DEP and the people managing that have come up with a lot of rules about how much good ground, to put it in simple layman's terms, how much good ground do you need to clarify that waste before we get down into groundwater wells and things like that. We're going to take a quick look at a septic tank. So the waste is coming in from the house into this tank. Everything since what year, Matt, is 2-compartment? 96? Okay, yeah, 2-compartment or 2 separate tanks. And again, the purpose there is we're doing our main sorting in this tank, and over here, it's like a further clarifying. So it comes in, we don't want that disturbing the liquid in that tank. We don't want it coming in, washing across the top of the tank. Therefore, there's some means, usually it's a PVC-T. We also, in this kind, sometimes you have walls that do the same thing. But in any case, you're going to push that liquid down into the center. There, at least 24 hours, hopefully more, it's sitting there, has a chance for the sludge to settle out and the scum to go on top. The scum is going to get digested by bugs, broken down to gas and sludge, and move on. So there we have the same thing. And again, on the same idea out here, you want to take it out of the middle so you're not taking sludge off the bottom or scum off the top to go out to the drain field. If this is missing, can somebody tell me what's going to happen? Just take a simple guess. That is correct. And what's going to happen next? You'll call a company like Sunco saying, we got to fix it. We got a problem. Because it's going to slime. It basically turns that absorption area in like a pool liner. And so we don't want this. When we find that problem, if it's not backed up, we fix it as quick as we can. And hopefully, through the process of nature, what is out there can break down over time. This is where it all started years ago. Before we had septic tanks and drain fields, we had cesspool. What's wrong with a cesspool? Nothing's wrong with a cesspool. It's a very simple system. It works very well. You stack blocks or stone around it, except 2 problems. Number one is this was done shortly after we graduated from an outhouse to basically an indoor outhouse. That's very different from today's house that's putting hundreds of gallons of water a day in there. It's not going to handle the flow. Additionally, depending how deep this cesspool goes, what's happening down here with groundwater. I remember, over the years, sometimes we pumped cesspools and they work backwards because the water table was that high, the water was pouring in. I'm just sitting there pumping and pumping and pumping. Finally, you decide, so when am I going to decide that I'm finished pumping this tank? Evidently, once my truck's full, but anyway, so cesspool, of course, has not been a viable option since at least the 1970s, if not before. Here's a typical conventional drain field. This is after it comes out of the tank. You could have a manifold line, you could have a D-box. Some way or another, you're getting that effluent, that wastewater out into a bed of stone. Now this isn't covered, this would be covered with stone and then a layer of dirt on top. But that's how a drain field looks. That's the most basic systems. I hear a lot of people say, oh, you know, they don't put them in anymore. Actually, I'm going to say there's a side of why people say that. But the reality is, since they've started testing soils, there's actually not many soils that meet this criteria that have the 72 inches of, like I said earlier, good dirt, which is what, because they've all been used up a long time ago. Now, there's places that are still doing that. There's places down in Chester County still doing it. There's places you can do that. But a lot of those places are now building on more marginal lots. Therefore, we have less good soil, and we got to come up with other means of filtering that effluent before it hits the groundwater. Here's another variant of the drain field. Instead of a drain field, we got trenches. It's called a trench system. Same basic thing. Here's an at-grade system. That's when, okay, we don't have 72 inches. We can't go down in, but we still have a good amount of good ground, enough that if we just put the bed right on top of the ground, we can still use that good ground. Not near as big as a mound, but you got a small bump in the yard. Depending on how it is, you might be able to feather it in. It's not as big as the sand mound. And then is what I call the big ugly sand mound. I hate them. I always have. I think it's 1960s minus technology, and we don't need to be doing this anymore. But yes, I'm going to be honest, we still even put them in. I am longing for the day when I have a happy birthday celebration and put the last sand mound. I just hate them. I think there's many reasons I hate them. Number one is they're big and they're ugly. They don't belong on properties. In fact, I call it burying a school bus. See, big, ugly sand mound bus. Think of that. It looks like somebody buried a bus in the backyard. And the other thing is the filter media, namely the sand, which is what the sand is, can clog up. The soil-sand interface can clog up. The pump can go out. There's lots of things that can give problems, and always having lawnmowers hit the cleanouts. I wonder at any given time in Southeast PA how many sand mounds are not functioning as they were designed because all the vent pipes were busted off by the lawnmower or something. So, but the way that works, it comes from the tank into a pump tank, a dosing tank, which, depending on the effluent level amount from the house, at preset intervals, doses it up into the sand mound, loads it with 100, 200 gallons, however many gallons it sends out there, and it loads that all up and then leaves it settle down in and filter through the sand mound system. Then there's more advanced things like drip systems, where you can put a micro mound in the ground and get rid of the effluent through drip tube. Naturally, you're going to have very clarified waste going in that because you can't handle dirty waste going into a drip system because it won't function very long that way. I think that's all I have for an overview. Matt, if you're ready to talk about septic systems or inspections and why they're important.